Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, precisionhydration.com.
Precision Hydration offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalise your hydration strategy today at precisionhydration.com and get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code OxygenAddict.
We're also brought to you by foodcell.co.uk.
The next generation of top tube nutritional carriers for your bike, designed to allow endurance triathletes and cyclists to carry enough food and gels while allowing easy access. Use the code FREEPOST for free delivery worldwide. Check it out at foodcell.co.uk.
And we're also brought to you by Tribe.
Natural sports nutrition delivered direct to you. You can get a trial pack of 6 delicious energy bars, protein and protein shakes for just £1, including postage and packaging. Head to wearetribe.co/oxygen addict and use the code TRIBEOxygenAddict.
Awesome stuff. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. It is bright and early Monday morning here. The sun's out and shining. Today we've got a brilliant show lined up for you. We've got some race results from Mallorca 70.3 amongst other places around the world. And we've got an awesome interview with Frankie Sanjana as well, haven't we, Hells?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really, really interesting interviewing Frankie. And you know, Rob, how a lot of pros, when they say maybe if they've come up through the age group ranks and they still, I don't know, bashed out a sort of 10.5-hour Ironman or whatever when they first did it before they turned pro. Frankie's story of her first Ironman is pretty interesting. 8.5-hour marathon.
Really?
Yeah.
Wowzers. An inspirational interview for everybody out there doing their first Ironman who hopes that they can improve in the future then, right?
Yep, definitely.
Loving it. All right, well, Hells, first up, I think we've got to give Hells props here. We're recording pre-7 a.m. today, and Hells tells me she's already been up and done a run and had breakfast before we're recording. Hardcore. Love it.
I got up at alarm went off at 5:30, out the door at 20-6. Quick, quick 5K, back, breakfast. I've even showered, Rob.
That is
I even put moisturiser on my face. I mean, you've been treated here.
You are on it. Thank God it's not a video call, right? You don't want to be looking at me at this time in the morning.
No, exactly. So yeah, bright and early. I'm off to London town at 8 a.m. I have to get a train. So we're on it this morning.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to kick off by saying congratulations to you and your team for putting on the Smart Financial Services Canute Kids Duathlon in Lymm this weekend. I took my little dude and his friends up there, and they absolutely loved it. Hells, you put on a brilliant event. The sun was shining, the fields were green and beautiful. It was like England's pleasant land, wasn't it?
It was. We were really, really lucky with the weather because obviously last week it had been pretty horrible and quite raining. And
even the day before the sun started to come through about lunchtime, but it was still freezing cold. And then race day, glorious sunshine. Everyone's in t-shirts. Everyone's dancing to the music.
We were there with bobble hats on and gloves at 7 a.m. It was 3 degrees, I think, when we left home.
It was chilly when you set up, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it warmed up, and we had nearly 100 kids taking part, which is amazing, from like 4 to 12 years old. And we've had a lot of nice feedback, like you're saying there, and like how much of the kids had enjoyed it. One dad, it sort of really stood out actually for me, because he said, I think his daughter's very good, and quite often she might go to races like, I don't know, Alton Park or something like that. And basically he said that all the kids are on flashy carbon and everything like that. And he said, and it's so nice what you're doing here, because it literally, equipment doesn't come into it. They just need a bike and a pair of trainers kind of thing.
It was ace. It was real grassroots racing, like literally grassroots racing. No transition racking, kids' bikes on the floor by little numbered flags. So they still, proper transition area. But my son got there and he was just like, whoa, what's going on? What happened here? I'm confused. And then within a couple of minutes, a volunteer had taken him round, they'd taken him through and shown him what was going on. And he absolutely loved it. Every kid there had such a massive smile on their face as they were doing it. And they were all, it wasn't like racing. It was like the kids had this, like a fun run feel to it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was really, really great. So when's the next one? Tell us when the next one is for people who are listening and they can get there for the Northwest.
Yeah, so the next one is June the 30th.
Okay.
At Darland High School, which is in Rossett, which is near Wrexham. And again, it'll be for primary age and up to year 7. So literally 4 years old, 12. And there's a fun run for the under 5s, or anybody basically who doesn't want to do a duathlon. You can go and do the fun run. And then, different duathlon races. So yesterday we had 3, depending on age. So split into school year groups, kind of year 5, 6, and 7, year 3 and 4, and years 1 and 2. And there are loads of marshals on hand to help everybody.
It was just brilliant. It was just generally awesome.
They'll get a medal. So canuteduathlon.com. And then the final one will be in Knutsford on Sunday, July the 7th.
All right, listeners, so if you're anywhere in the area, get yourselves down, come down and meet Hells, come down and meet me, race around with your kids, try not to be an uber competitive mum or dad. There were 1 or 2 of those there, but only 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I never want to be that parent whose voice is louder than like the ship docking at Liverpool docks. Come on!
No, you need to leave that to us marshals and volunteers who were just like,
oh, it's great fun.
Yeah, we were full of beans.
My little dude jumped off his bike at the end of the bike ride and then walked like it was a road safety, walked at about half a mile an hour, really pristinely through. The marshal was going, "You're allowed to run through, push your bike, push back." He said, "Do do 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 do." It's dead hard not to be like, "Come on,
just go a bit quicker."
Oh, great fun.
It's 1 or 2 of them. Like we were just helping them around the last bit of the run course, like with a bit of encouragement, and they'd sort of like sprint to you, and then you'd like go, "Okay, look, we've got a little bit more to go," and then they'd sprint again.
Yeah. It's all or nothing, isn't it? We've got 2 speeds. We'll walk in or we'll go as fast
and then
as
it's
we
like,
can.
You literally just get to that next person, then you can sprint finish.
Do you know what's really funny is I was talking with Rushy at the start of my son's race, and the hooter went to start them, and everyone sprinted as fast as they could, and we both went, "Oh no, they're going far too fast." And Rushy looked at me and went, "Do you know what? It looks just like the start of an adult duathlon. We're no better."
They really, like, especially the really, really, really young ones.
Yeah.
Just
it was fun, wasn't it? It was awesome. Yeah. All right, listen, let's kick on with the show and crack on with various, because we've got all kinds of racing going on, haven't we, throughout the year? So let's have a look. First, shout out to precisionhydration.com. You need to get yourself some electrolytes. It's going to be hot and sunny this week, Hells, and we want to keep those calf cramps away. So go over to precisionhydration.com, take the online sweat test, and if that points you to being a particularly heavy or salty sweater, then get yourself to see them in person and have your sweat tested, because if you're really heavy sweater or you're really salty sweater, then that can really mess with your electrolyte balance. They do awesome electrolytes in different strengths. So for me, super salty sweater, I get those 1500 milligram sachets. Doesn't taste horrible and salty. It goes in the bottle. I've got an admission. I was out doing a little bit of training last night. Got out in the evening sunshine and thought, you know what? Get the pH in the bottle. Don't want any of those midnight calf cramps tonight. So the 1500s did me the job, and I got a nice peaceful night's sleep afterwards, which for a guy like me, who's used to being woken up in the night feeling as though he's been shot in the calves, it was awesome.
Very sensible. Very sensible.
Right, so let's kick it off then. Down in 70.3 Pays d'Aix, down in France, where we had wins for Andy Bocquerat and Emma Pallant.
Yeah, Emma Pallant with another win this season. She did a nice swift 1:16 half marathon to get the win there. That's blooming quick, isn't it?
It really is. It's only a couple of minutes short of the men's top 5, their kind of run time. So she looks like she's absolutely flying on a run, and she's got a precision hydration run visor on as well, which is very cool. Very natty there. Fashion props to you, Emma.
And then second was Nikki Bartlett, who out-sprinted India Lee at the end. The
GB 123, loving it. Yeah, so brilliant. India Lee, I think is she second year of racing pro now? She won Weymouth 70.3, didn't she? The back end of last year. And actually, I was interviewing Susie Cheetham earlier this week, and she's a training partner of Susie's, and she was saying, you should get India Lee on the show. She's going really well, and she's going to race this weekend. So Susie calls a podium for India.
Yeah, no, really good performance. And Great run as well from Nikki, who, friend of the show. We've had her on absolutely loads, and she said afterwards that she was so happy to put a performance out, which shows where her training is at. And she was a few minutes down and really had to work hard on that run to catch India, and she did, and then out sprinted her at the finish.
Oh, good stuff. Over on the men's side, solid win for Andy Bokra in 3:52. Britain's Adam Bowden comes through. Get this, Hells. 1:08.41 on the run. That's like 5 minutes faster than Andy Bokra, 5 clear minutes faster than anyone else in the field to take second. So that is a rock star run performance, isn't it?
It is a rock star run performance, and he keeps on doing it. Like he keeps on, because he is a blinking.
He's a machine.
He is a machine. Yes.
So takes down Andy Dreitz, who was in third in 3:56. All right, next up on our little agenda, we've got the regional championships, 70.3. Come on, you pronounce it. 70.3 Da Nang, is it? In Vietnam?
Da Nang. Yeah. So it was the Asia Pacific Championship, wasn't it? And they had a really, really, really stacked field for those races.
Yeah.
Fresh off the back of her win at St. George, literally 7 days prior, Holly Lawrence took the win again.
Backs it up, yeah.
I mean, that's good going, isn't it? Given the travel that she'll have had to do between the two and the jet lag and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
Super impressive performance with her, so it's good to see. Listen, back a couple of episodes ago, we've got an interview with her, and she was saying she feels like she's in pretty good form, so she's backing that up there, and it looks like she didn't have to absolutely kill it on the run as well. It looks like it was super, super hot, so she takes that in 4:04 from Sarah Crowley in second and Radka Karlfeldt in third. The men's race was even more stacked than the women's race by the look of things, wasn't it?
Yeah. The likes of Patrick Langer, Tim Reed, Mike Phillips, Crowe, Tim Don, Romain Guillaume, loads of them. So massive, massive field. And it was Patrick Langer's first race, I think, of the season. And he went and won it. So 3:49 ahead of Tim Van Berkel, and then Tim Reed, who, again, Rob, he only did Ironman Australia 7 days prior, didn't he?
Yeah. And also, again, shout out to Craig Alexander finishing in fifth there. He raced just last weekend and won last weekend as well, didn't he? So to do that on sore legs, impressive stuff. Looks like it came down to a real run battle. There was a lot of guys came off the race together, and I get the feeling that the run splits might not quite show how the racing was. Apparently, Patrick Langer dropped in a couple of 3-minute Ks in the middle of that run to take the win. So Patrick Langer takes it in 3:49 from Tim Van Berkel in 3:50, Tim Reed in 3:52. Then Mike Phillips and Craig Alexander in fifth, with Tim Don in sixth, all kind of stacked in there. I think it's worth calling this out, actually. That pack of guys there are all running like 1:20, 1:21. Sarah Crowley ran 1:23. So we've known that she goes really well in the heat and humidity, but that's a really great performance with hardly any deficit to the men's run splits there for her, isn't it?
No, really, yeah. Yeah, that is decent.
Yeah. I think Crowe turns 46 this week.
Happy birthday.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable. Yeah, it is unbelievable.
I wonder if he can keep doing this till he's 50. That'd be awesome. Still racing pro at 50.
Yeah.
And that's a legit race as well, isn't it? The 70.3 Asia Pacific Championships.
Well, with that field, seriously, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rob, is he like, what, 2 months older than you?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Come on.
I tell you, I'm not turning out at 3:45 anytime soon. 3:54, sorry, anytime soon. Oh, my Achilles tendons hurt just looking at that run split.
Yeah, don't.
Wowzers.
Honestly, insane. Should we head over to Mallorca, which was 70.3, age group only race. Rob, get this.
And pretty much every age group in the Western Hemisphere racing.
Like, how long does it take to get through transition there? 4,000 athletes.
Yeah, that is just it's beyond massive, isn't it?
It's insane. Absolutely
really.
Insane.
And it's on my list of races that I would like to do, because the bike course is a really great mix of sort of fast, flat time trialing, a really beautiful mountain climb, fast, windy descent, and then sort of fast, flat time trialing back to the start again. it looks like I had 3 athletes out there racing.
Did you?
From the guys, and all of them said, "Oh my God, that was hot and windy."
Yeah.
It was proper hot, sunny Mallorcan weather, but with lots of wind as well. So really tough conditions for the guys who were racing out there.
Because the last couple of years, it's been, one year they just had awful, like freezing cold weather, didn't they?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I remember it rained really hard and there were loads of people coming off on their descent. So it's nice that they get good conditions. And because a lot of people are quite nervous about that. Obviously, it's one thing having a race with a big climb in it, but windy, switchbacky kind of descent as well with lots of motivated people on can be really dangerous. So, in fact, my man Corbin, who was racing, said there were some maniacs on the descent in his race report. He said, "I was just trying to stay out of trouble." But he nailed it. He wanted to go sub 5:30 and he put out a 5:29, which was brilliant.
Nice.
And we also had Laura and Suzanne racing from Team OA, and they posted a nice picture of them like standing next to each other at the finish, although they'd never met. So they got the nice finishers Team OA selfie together. So nice work, you two.
Brilliant. And Rob, Alison McKenzie was the fastest female overall. She did it in 4:43.
That's brilliant, isn't it? So let's give some shout outs to the fastest GB athletes. We had Alison McKenzie in the female 35, Joe Wright in the female 25 was 5th overall, and Elizabeth Duncombe was 8th overall. And then on the men's side, Ian Dempsey was 8th overall, Sion Stansfield was 9th overall, and Richard Shepherd was, well, he was 3rd Brit. It doesn't say he's placing overall, but he must have been very close to the top 10 overall. He was only a handful of seconds behind.
Yeah. I'm gonna give one more, Rob.
Go on.
Jill Fullen, 10th overall in the age 55 to 59. She did 4:58.
Wow, she's a machine as well, isn't she?
Yeah.
Loving it. All right, Coach's Couch this week.
The question is, Rob, what run pace and heart rate levels should you be running at for 70.3 and Ironman races?
All right, so we're going to do this on the back of our question about bike pacing for last week. Somebody sent me an email and said, it's all very well talking about like your pacing on the bike, but what about pacing on the run? Because I've always basically just gone run as hard as I possibly can to get to the finish. So I thought, right, this is a good one. So before we give you some pacing advice here, the key is we're setting your pace caps to ensure that you can have a really strong back end of the run. So no matter what distance you're at, from sprints all the way through to Ironman, you really want to be feeling like you're going fast when the rest of the race is running slow. And the key to that is usually controlling yourself at the start of the run, because as we said with the kids' duathlon earlier, the way that it feels at the start of the run is often not the way that it is. You're full of adrenaline and you're going to go far too fast. So treat these numbers here as caps to hold yourself back rather than targets to aim for. So first up, we'll go with 70.3 in Ironman first, and I'll give a shout out about Sprint and Olympic as well. For our iron distance athletes, aim for the top end of your e-pace. So again, go to oxygenaddict.com/v. Type in a recent race result, and that'll give you the paces that you can run relative to your own fitness at the moment. Run at your e-pace there. E-pace will be given to you as a zone. It's a zone about 45 seconds wide, but the faster end of your e-pace is a real good target for like an aggressive run. If you feel like you're in really good run shape. Obviously, if you don't feel as though you're in really good run shape, back off to the middle of your e-pace run. And again, what I would advise you to do here is do the 9-1 run-walk method up to about the 20-mile point. You don't have to do it exactly in that ratio. You can time your walk to go through an aid station so you can get your aid in. And then if you can do this right, you'll get to the 20-mile point of the run in really good shape to be able to run a hard, continuous last 10K. You might not go any faster, but you'll certainly feel it if you're running when everyone else has fallen apart and they're just walking. Okay. In terms of heart rate zones, that's going to be the middle to top end of your heart rate zone 2. 70.3 pacing is your M pace. So that's your marathon pace run. It's going to be about somewhere in the region of, 45 seconds to a minute per mile faster than your e-pace. So it isn't particularly fast in terms of pure running paces. And I think the temptation as you're doing a 70.3 is going to be to think, I can run much faster than this. But again, control yourself over the first half. If it does turn out you've got brilliant legs, you can always pick it up in the second half. And again, instead of doing a 9-1 run walk, do 9.5 and then 30 seconds walk. Again, time that through the aid stations. If you can do that for the first half of your run, you can then run continuously to the finish line. There's nothing wrong with stopping to get a mouthful of drink in the back half of your run, but if you set this up right, you'll be able to run a really strong last 10K when everyone else is falling apart. And then in terms of sprint and Olympic, on the sprint, I think if you can pace your 5K, so you're running your sort of flat out 5K pace plus 5 to 10 seconds per mile. So let's say, your standard 5K pace is 6 minutes a mile. If you can run 6:05 to 6:10, then that's a good cap there, and it's a real good aggressive target for a good run off the bike. On an Olympic distance race, cap yourself at your 10K race pace plus 10 to 15 seconds a mile. So again, if your 10K race pace is 6 minutes, you're looking at 6:10 to 6:15. But the absolute key to this is, especially with those shorter distances, really try and hold yourself back out of transition over the first 400, because the adrenaline works like an anesthetic, and if you can hold yourself back a bit there, you really can make some differences later on in the run. Yeah, sound good?
Yep. Don't go too hard too soon.
Don't go too hard too soon. All right, so a bit of a shout out for Team Oxygen Addict. If you're thinking about getting yourself some coaching at the moment and you're thinking, well, we're coming into race season, we've got a special offer in May. If you take out an annual membership, we're going to extend your membership all the way through to the end of September 2020. So actually, an annual membership's buying you, it's a year plus almost 5 months worth extra free. So you get 2 race summers of coaching for the price of 1 annual membership, which is pretty awesome going. And also, we've decided to offer 30-day money back guarantee, because I'm aware paying up for a year's coaching up front is a big chunk of change up front, but really, really confident in what we're offering, and we want you to be super happy as well. So 30-day, no questions asked, money back guarantee. If you get into it and you think this isn't for me, you drop us an email and you go, that's it, it's not been for me, you can have my money back. And there you go, you get your money back as well. So we try and make it as painless as possible for people. So get in contact via teamoxygenaddict.com if you're looking for a bit of coaching.
Nice.
Awesome stuff. Right, Hells, can you talk us through our interview of the week this week, please?
Yep, so we're going to be speaking to Frankie Sanjana, who we mentioned on the show the other day because she did Galveston 70.3, finishing between Meredith, Kessler and Linsey Corbin, and her time, Rob, was 25 minutes faster than a year ago. She's a name and an athlete that she's sort of been around for a while. You might have heard of her, we might have mentioned her a couple of years ago in results. She did used to race age group. She used to be a rower, and it's just really interesting. So many of the people that we interview talk about consistency, don't they? And that is always consistency. And you'll often say things don't happen overnight. You want to get better, you want to improve at this sport. It's bit by bit. Yeah. And I think Frankie is such a good example of that. So she's been plugging away. And now it seems that, the potential that she has clearly shown and clearly had from her background in rowing is kind of finally actually coming through on, in her races and things like that. So here we go. Here is this week's interview of the week. Frankie Sanjana, hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. First of all, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
Oh, no worries at all. Where are you is my next question.
At the moment, I'm in Tucson in Arizona. I've been out here since the end of February, and I'll be out here another couple of weeks, just getting in a really good training block before the season kicks off.
And how did the link come about with Tucson? Because originally you're from the UK, but you currently live in Amsterdam. So what are you doing in Tucson?
Well, my old coach had a training camp out here. So that was when I first came out in 2017. And then I wanted to do the 70.3 in Galveston because I'd always seen it as a flat course, one that would really suit my strengths. And I had about 3 weeks in between that training camp and going to Texas. So rather than go all the way back home again, I actually saw this thing called the Home Stretch Foundation. which has been set up here by Catherine Bertine to provide accommodation and support to help female cyclists to try and redress the balance in terms of inequality. I saw that was here and I thought, well, they're probably full of cyclists. And it does say on their website, they'll help athletes from any other sport if they've got space for them. So I applied, and that was actually their first year. So they weren't completely full of cyclists, and they did have space for me to go for those 3 weeks. I was really lucky. They actually then had space for me to go back again for a couple of months last year, and that's established Tucson for me as a place where I can come to train. I'm not currently staying there. I'm staying with a friend, but just the setup here, there's great biking, great running, loads of swimming pools, and of course it's not really cold, which Amsterdam is right now.
And are there many other triathletes around that you can join in with for training?
Yeah, I'm actually swimming with a friend at the moment who was, I think she was an elite junior, which has been perfect actually. So it's helped her get back into swimming. And the first few weeks we were about the same speed, and then her fitness started to come back, and now every day I haul myself out of the pool after trying to keep up with her. But that's exactly what you need, isn't it? So that's really good. The rest I mostly do by myself. I've hooked up with a couple of other people for track sessions, but to be honest, I actually prefer to do most of my training by myself, so it works out great for me.
And what's the actual... I mean, Tucson's known for being ridiculously hot, isn't it? What's the sort of environment like?
It's really interesting actually, coming from Northern Europe where we don't really have weather. It's really cold in the mornings because it's basically the desert, and then it's really hot in the afternoons. So this morning I was out for a swim and I was all wrapped up and body warmer and hat and all that, and then this afternoon I'll go out cycling and I'll be sweating in just a shorts and jersey, and it's really, really dry obviously as well because it's the desert, so that does kind of make it less of a challenge than if it was somewhere really hot and humid like Texas or Hawaii or something. But it also just dries you out, so you've got to really keep hydrated.
Wow, it's totally different to Amsterdam.
It is about as different from Amsterdam as you could get.
I want to know how, because I've been doing a little bit of research. Obviously, I've come across your name for quite a number of years now. And the other day, you've been around for a while. But the other day, you obviously had a brilliant result at Galveston, finishing between Meredith, Kessler, and Linsey, Corbin, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
But before you were racing in the pro ranks, my God, you've had quite a journey to this point. Oh, that's such a bad word, but I mean, you have. It's fascinating if you read some of your early race reports.
Yeah, so I came from international rowing. In 2012, I got to the last round of trials for the Olympic team and then didn't make it. Kind of overtrained myself trying to prove them wrong, and then ended up sitting on the sofa, not really allowed to do anything for a few weeks because I was in such a mess. And my boyfriend already did Ironman, and while I was sitting on the sofa, I read Chrissy Wellington's book, and I was like, well, this sounds impossible. Like, you swim all this and then you bike all that and then you run a marathon, but obviously it's not impossible, so people do it. And I just really wanted a completely different challenge from rowing, which is really short event. It's about 7 or 8 minutes. And I thought, I'm going to do an Ironman. And luckily, my dear boyfriend sensibly talked me down and got me to do a half Ironman instead, which was a really good thing. So I did 70.3 Galway as my first one. And I think I finished 6th in my age group with some terribly slow time, but I got a roll down slot for World Champs. So I was super excited. I was like, this is great. So I've been trying to go to World Champs in rowing for years and years and years. Now I'm going to World Champs in this other thing that I've been doing for 5 minutes. And, it's not quite the same because rowing I was doing as an elite, and that was obviously as an age grouper. But it was exactly what I needed after these years and years of plugging away at rowing and not quite getting there. So I probably approached the whole thing with a bit too much enthusiasm and not enough patience, and I just got injury after injury. And then I actually finally got an injury that wasn't my fault. It was the shape that my hips were. But that took me out for a year, 2014 to 2015. And in my infinite wisdom, I decided that the best way to deal with this would be to get my pro license when I came back, because then I could enter races when I wanted to, rather than worrying about them selling out in advance. And I didn't know when I was going to be ready to race again. So my first year racing pro, I did pretty badly. My second year, I did slightly better. And then kind of gradually rebuilt. I was with a coach from the end of 2016 until I think about May last year. And for whatever reason, like, it just didn't work for me. Like, I completely plateaued. I didn't make any improvement during that time, which was incredibly frustrating. And then I've been back working with Steve since that point, and it's just been amazing, the progress we've made. We've pretty much ripped everything up and started again.
Wow.
So it's been these years and years and years of like plugging away, kind of knowing that, I guess partly because I'd done well at rowing, I knew, or I kept the faith that I could actually be not bad at this. And now it feels like it's finally starting to move in the right direction, which is really, really nice.
Wow. So that is pretty much 7 years in the making.
Yeah, and it's still making. Like, I don't think I'm anywhere near where I can get to yet. I just have to get things right and, not mess anything up and not start training again too soon after races, that sort of thing.
Shh. We won't talk about that.
Yeah,
there's a photo of you from that first race, from that 70.3 in Galway, and you're overtaking a guy in an aero helmet with a disc wheel. He's got calf guards on, the lot, and you're there on your road bike and just looks like you're having a ball. So clearly you have got that sort of natural talent.
Yeah, and I've always been relatively strong on the bike, because coming from rowing, a lot of people think rowing uses your arms. Actually, it's like 90% legs. So you jump on a bike and like your handling is atrocious, but you can go really, really fast. So that's always been there. And then I was like, well, I must be able to learn to swim, and I must be able to learn to run. It turns out in running there was this thing wrong with my hips, but like, I was like, there isn't something wrong with me such that I can't learn to do these other sports, like I've got some kind of level of physical ability, whether that's from like the 8 years I spent rowing or whether that's natural talent or some combination. So with the right kind of, some people would call it stubbornness, I like to call it determination. I was like, I must be able to be good at this. So that's what kept me going through all of that.
Had you done any swimming before then, or did you have to learn from scratch?
I learned when I was a kid, in that kind of learning to swim sort of proficiency, like so you don't drown kind of swimming. I think I was a bit, I think as an adult when I wasn't rowing, I maybe did a little bit of breaststroke just as exercise, but I didn't really like putting my face in the water, so I didn't do front crawl. So when I came to triathlon, that was kind of my first thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to first of all, I'm going to have to put my face in the water. And that was kind of easy. And then I was like, now I have to learn to move forwards quickly. And as you will see, if you look at my splits from Galveston, I am still working on that.
And did you hook up with Steve True for your swimming at the beginning then? Or how did you actually go from doing a bit of breaststroke to getting your head in the water and doing front crawl? I first of all got lessons from like a friend of a friend down at this 20-meter pool somewhere in Kingston, and he was great actually, but the pool wasn't great, and I think I just wasn't making the progress that I really wanted to make. And I was, after rowing, I needed to be self-coached for a while. Just I'd had enough of being told what to do, so I was self-coached. So I read every article going on the internet about triathlon and about how to swim and how to structure your training program and all that. And I'd read quite a few swimming articles by Dan Bullock, and I was like, oh, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and actually he's based in London, so why don't I get some lessons with him? So I got some lessons with Dan,
and that was great. And he's really, really helped. And it's such a shame I'm not in the UK. I do still see him on training camps sometimes, but it's not the same as seeing a coach every week. I have a new swim coach in the Netherlands now. And I was looking for a training camp in 2016, and he put me in touch with Steve then, because he coaches on Steve's camp in Italy. And he said, it's not the most serious training camp, but this is where I'll be. And I thought, well, give it a go. So I got in touch with Steve, and Steve said, yes, we've still got space, come on out. So I went out and really got on with Steve, really got on with all the other athletes there. And that was actually something that told me a lot, because a lot of places I have been for training, I've had a lot of people try and tell me what they think, not the coaches, like the other athletes, sort of tell me what they think I should be doing, or, say, oh, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that? And I kind of feel a bit like defensive. Yep. And in Italy, like, no one was like that. And everyone was just lovely, and I fitted in really well. And something I've seen both through rowing and in triathlon is like the coach really sets the tone of the group. So I thought, if this is a good group of people, that says a lot of positive things about Steve as a coach. So I actually worked with Steve for a bit in 2016, and then I went to this other coach, Michael, because he had a group of athletes training together, and I was trying to find a setup where I could be with other people who were training rather than doing everything by myself, because there's quite a school of thought that is the road to success. Yeah. For me, it just wasn't. So then when I left from being coached by Michael last year, I was back in Italy for the training camp again, and I said to Steve, will you work with me for now and see where we get to? And he was so sweet. He said, I'm not sure if I'm good enough. And I said, well, let's try it and see where we get. And now almost a year later, I mean, I was 25 minutes faster at Galveston this year than I was last year. And that it was slightly faster conditions. Maybe that will give me 5, but even so, like, that's an amazing improvement in a year, especially when you're starting to get towards the top end. It's not like going from sort of, I don't know, 8 hours to 7 hours is a bit something. So it's working really well. And like I said, I just have to not mess it up by overtraining myself. So actually the way we worked is quite interesting as well. Steve doesn't load my whole program into Training Peaks for me. He'll send me a list of sessions and say, work these in, and it works so well, because it means if I start warming up for the session one day and I've only got a steady session on the program, I'm feeling great, and I know that I've got like mile repeaters coming up, I can just be like, well, I'll just bash these out now. And conversely, if I've got something really hard on the program and I start warming up and I feel miserable and awful and like, oh god, this just isn't happening today, then I can be like, well, it doesn't have to be today. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that approach helped me take at least some of that pressure off.
And actually, you've got it gives you a lot of control, doesn't it? And importantly, you're listening to your own body.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Like, and I still don't always get it right, but it is important. And certainly before, when I had every session in Training Peaks with my old coach, I'd wake up and I'd feel dreadful, and I wouldn't be able to really do the session properly. But I'd be like, well, it says I have to do it, so I have to do it, and I'd just push through, and I ended up a mess by the end of it, because I was just so tired from always pushing through and not backing off. So I mean, this is clearly working better.
It's lessons for everyone, I think, isn't it, about actually listening to how you are feeling. And that's such an important question for yourself and from a coach as well.
Yeah, and I think you need to know yourself. I mean, I know that my tendency is to like keep thrashing my body even when I'm too tired. So if I don't want to do a session one day, I'll be like, okay, well, maybe I actually shouldn't do it. Whereas, I hear a lot of people say if they work with my model, they'd never do the hard sessions. And then obviously, you need to be honest about that as well. But if you've got the balance to get it right, then it works. And I think different things really do work for different people as well. Like what I'm doing, a lot of people just would hate. I know a lot of people like having that decision making taken away from them, not having to worry about it.
Yeah, it is so true. There are different models, and what works for one person might not necessarily work for another. Ironman Texas 2013.
Oh God!
It sounds like literally the worst possible race. I don't even know how you got to the finish line.
Well, so my boyfriend only temporarily talked me down from doing the Ironman. So I'm ashamed to say that I dragged him with me, and he did it as well. And he had possibly an even worse day out than I did. So the swim was fine. I think I did a 120 or something, non-wetsuit swim, which obviously now I wouldn't be happy with, but at the time I was like, that's fine. I hadn't got the hang of time trial bikes or anything like that yet, so I was on my lovely road bike. And off I went, and the first few hours were great, the way the first few hours on an Ironman bike probably are. And then I think it was somewhere around mile 50, I was just going through an aid station. Literally, I was reaching out to take a bottle, and then the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. And I was like, what just happened? And eventually realised someone had hit me from behind and just knocked me off. And
Another
I don't know what they were
competitor?
doing. Yeah. I think they were just trying to, plough through the aid station without slowing down for water, but they didn't. I guess they weren't looking where they were going. I just don't know. So I picked myself up, and the volunteers helped me get the chain back on the bike and all that stuff that I had no idea how to do because, let's face it, I was a total newbie. And I got back on, and I realised I had a bit of a headache and that I was bleeding a bit and that sort of thing, and I felt sick and I couldn't eat anything else. Later realised my helmet was split in two, probably had concussion. Anyway, so I carried on, was not feeling great by the time I got into T2, but was like, well, here I am. I'm only like a bit slower than I thought I was going to be, so I guess that's okay. And then I hadn't got the flying dismount thing down, obviously, but I took my shoes off as I got off my bike and then ran through transition because I was like, oh, that'll be faster. That's what you're supposed to do. But I haven't put any carpet down. So literally the soles of my feet got burnt as I was running on this really, really hot ground.
Oh my God.
And oh my goodness, it was so unpleasant. So I got out on the marathon. I think I tried to run a little bit, but my feet were so burnt. I couldn't even walk. I walked the whole thing on my heels. And I was kind of like waddling. I think the marathon took me I think I did a 1 hour 20 swim, a 5:30 bike, and then an 8:30 marathon or something. I can't remember, but it was something like that, and it was just awful. And I was out there looking for Ed, and we somehow never. It's the 3-lap run. I think it's still the same run course now. He never caught me up, and I never caught him up, so we didn't see each other until he came across the finish line, and even an hour after me, and he'd just got so hot on the bike. And he'd stopped at an aid station, and they had medically examined him, and they put a big cross on his bib number, which meant that he was allowed to continue, but every aid station he had to stop and basically be dunked in a paddling pool full of ice before he was allowed to continue. So we're there at the end of this race. Thankfully, his dad had come out to support, which was, I think that probably helped me finish, because I was like, well, his dad's come all this way to help us. And I come out and everyone knows I'm racing here. And it's my first one. I can't just drop out. And oh my goodness, it was awful. We got me home. My feet swelled up on the plane. I couldn't get my shoes back on. So I went through Heathrow in a wheelchair. And I think I pretty much spent the next week, just asleep. It was so horrible. I mean, obviously now, if anything like that happened, I would just drop out. But, it is a different mentality when you're a professional versus an age group. And, professional, that's a big thing at the back of your mind of, if I'm going to really damage myself doing this and get a bad result, then why would I do that rather than be ready for my next race in however many weeks' time? Whereas my first Ironman, that was an age group, I was like, well, I'm not going to not finish.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was not the best day of my life, I'm going to be honest.
Has any race ever come near to that in terms of being quite a mental challenge?
Yeah, in a really different way. So this is quite an interesting point, actually. Last year, well, we'll get to the interesting point. I'm going to ramble a bit first.
It's all right.
Last year, a couple of months after I'd gone back to coaching with Steve, like obviously the changes we'd made had not really kicked in yet. And I did a 70.3 in Finland, and I was something like 25 minutes off the winner, and I was almost last. And I was just, both during the run, because I knew how badly I was doing, and for about a week afterwards, I was just devastated. I was like, is this as good as I'm ever going to be? Like, you know, maybe I'm just, you know, it was a real crisis of confidence. Yeah, exactly. And like, maybe, you know, almost thinking maybe I should quit because I love the sport, but if this is as good as I can ever be, then, like, you know, what's the point, really? We're putting so much into it. And in the end, we just sort of, we pretty much sat down and we were like, what have I not been doing that I could do? And I've always accepted that I'm a bit clumsy and I shouldn't do flying mounts and dismounts. And last year I was like, well, right, I'm just going to do this. I've not yet managed to dismount in a race, but I pulled them out, and that saved me about a minute right there. And I also lost loads of weight, which is a whole can of worms that we can go into in more detail or not. But I lost about 10 kilos since then.
My God.
And I've been putting it off because I'd had stress fractures when I was rowing from doing too much training and not enough eating. And I'd seen, especially, I wasn't a lightweight when I rowed, but I'd seen lightweight rowers get so injured and so sick from losing weight. And, you know, I came in at a healthy BMI, so I was like, maybe I should just, you know, not worry about this. My old coach always said, don't worry about losing weight, kind of, it's not going to make any difference, even when I asked him straight out. So I was kind of, well, maybe I don't need to. And then I was like, well, let's just try it and see. And then at my next race, I think I'd lost about 5 kilos by that point, and I got a 10-minute PB. And then by Bahrain in December, I'd lost pretty much all of it. I think like 9 kilos or something, and I got another 12 minutes off or something. So, I mean, I think Steve's program has made a huge difference, and all the other sort of little bits and pieces. Like we changed some of my equipment a little bit, and like I said, I learned the flying mounts, but I do think for me, the weight made a real difference. And obviously that's only, you know, that only works if you have that weight to lose. I don't want anyone to listen to this and take this as I must lose weight to go faster, because that's absolutely not what I'm saying. But for me, it was kind of a piece of the jigsaw that just wasn't quite there. So that race led to, sorry, let's go back to your original question. Like, that race was mentally horrendous and led to all this change.
Wow. And so I guess just from all of that self-doubt, basically, and then from Finland. Yeah,
and, you know, I'd obviously been frustrated for a while that I'd sort of plateaued for almost a couple of years. And yeah, it was just like, I have to do all these things that I'm not sure if I can or should try and do, but, you know, I'm kind of so desperate now to get faster, and I've tried everything else, and my training's been consistent. My training had then been consistent for the first time really in my career for a couple of years, and I was like, well, I've got the consistency of training, which is the thing that I always thought I was missing. Like, there must be more to it.
And what input did Steve have with you, you know, losing all that weight?
Not much, but just sort of very, very gentle encouragement, coupled with a don't overdo it, you know, don't do anything stupid. So I think that was the right amount for a coach to have, because I do hear of some coaches really pressurizing their athletes to lose weight. And I don't think that's right. You know, I think you've absolutely got to be healthy first. And if someone's not ready to lose weight, or perhaps doesn't even need to lose weight, it's easy to think of it as a shortcut. And I'm sure some coaches will think maybe if we just need 1 more minute on the run, maybe another kilo would do it. And maybe that person doesn't have that kilo to lose. So what Steve did was perfect. And then Ed, my other half, was sort of keeping an eye on me as well to make sure that I was actually, I was never going to skip meals or any of that, but, I had someone there the whole time with me as well.
And that's massive, isn't it? Just having someone else to make sure that you are okay, every day. They can actually check in, they can see what you are consuming or whatever, and really call you up on it if you're not, if you're doing anything stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And there were a couple of times where I was just like, you need to ignore that today and just eat something because you're not able to train and you're really, really grumpy and you're not recovering properly. So it was absolutely invaluable to have him there as well.
And how are you feeling now, having done that? Like, do you feel strong? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I do still feel strong. I was really careful. I always ate after training sessions. I made sure I was still getting plenty of milk, dairy, that sort of thing, because I've seen a lot of people lose weight and have stress fractures. I haven't actually lost any power on the bike, which was one of my big concerns. So I feel pretty good, and the running, it seems to have made a surprising difference even to a flat bike course like Galveston. I think I just had a bad day in terms of power, and I put out about 10 watts less than previous years and went still a whole lot faster. So it has made a difference to the bike, but obviously the run has transformed. And again, on race day, it was like the run course at Galveston is all concrete, and it beats you up, and it was like I was sort of flying over it in comparison to previous years. It was fantastic. So I do feel the difference. Yeah.
What are your aims now then for this year? Because you said you turned pro in like 2014?
15, yeah, I think.
2015.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you get your pro license?
I think I had 2 times that were inside the criteria. So you have to apply to the BTF to get your pro license.
Yeah.
And in 2014, before I got injured, I had the top 10 overall women in an Ironman. I think I was the 3rd age group or something. And I had won a domestic race. And I think their criteria were looser than that. I think the top 3 in the domestic race would have done it or something. So I went to them and I said, I've got these results. Can I have my pro license, please? And they said no. And then I actually turned it over to Ed, who wrote back to them and said, what do you mean no? This is what your website says. This is what she's done. This is clearly within the rules. Like, give her the license. And they were pretty rude, but they did give me the license. And it was a battle for the first few years to get it. And all sorts of people would say that I shouldn't have been racing pro and I wasn't very good. And on one hand, I kind of appreciate that argument. But on the other hand, I would say, A, it's not doing anyone any harm. Like, if I'm racing pro and I'm not very good, no one has anything bad to them happen because of that. Whereas I've been training full time, and if I was racing as an age grouper, I'd kind of feel that was cheating a little bit, and that maybe I would have won my age group and taken a prize or a slot or something away from someone who was actually working around a full-time job. And so I thought, well, I want to do this professionally. I want to be comparing my times to the best people. And even if I'm not there yet, then if you race in the pro wave, that's a much better metric of where you are relative to those people than the age group waves with different wetsuit rules. And at the time, I think there were still different drafting rules for age groupers as well. So I was like, I get a much more honest assessment of where I am if I do that.
And now, knowing what you do know and knowing how long it's sort of taken you to get to where you are at the moment, would you have still taken that pro license in 2014, 15?
That's a really good question. I'm going to say yes, because I have ended up in a pretty good spot, and I don't know where. Maybe I would have got better faster. I don't know, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to say that I should have left it another 3 years, and maybe I wouldn't have got some of the opportunities that I've had, or I don't know what would have happened if I'd done things differently. And I kind of like the way things have turned out, so I'm going to say I'll stick with what I did.
Good, no regrets. So 2019 then, what are your major aims then for this year?
Another really good question that I don't have a very good prepared answer to. So I've got
we don't like prepared answers, don't worry.
Sorry?
We don't like prepared answers.
I've got the Challenge Championship coming up. So, I mean, it would be great to get a top 10 at that. But, I mean, I don't know who's going to turn up, which means I have no idea if that's, it's so dependent on who's there. I'm still pondering right now whether to go back to full Ironman, which before the 2014 injuries, I did more do full Ironmans. And since then, I've done one since the injury, but I've been mostly sticking to halves. I think really my aim for the year is just to keep improving because, like I said, I don't think I am at where I could be at yet. I feel like I still have a huge amount to learn and a lot of development still to come. So to stay healthy and keep getting better. It's a bit of a cop-out answer, isn't it? I don't know. I'm going to tell you. No, I want to be like whatever place at World Champs or something because, I mean, anything could happen. I don't know if I've got a slot for Nice. I don't know if I'll go, but just to stay healthy and to keep progressing is really what I want out of the year.
And does it appeal to you to go back to Ironman then full distance?
Yeah, well, yes and no. So I think I would probably be better at Ironman. Throughout my rowing career, I really, really struggled because I could not sprint and I just didn't have the raw power to go really, really fast. And even in half Ironman, I feel like you're still racing. It's a shorter race. It's reasonably intense, whereas full Ironman obviously is a level lower intensity, more endurance, and I just feel that I'd be stronger. But I'm a little scared of the distance, I've got to be honest, because of the many run injuries I've had in the past. So yeah, I'm really, really not sure. I definitely want to do it at some point. I'm just not sure how soon that will be.
Watch this space.
Yeah, we'll see.
Frankie, thank you so much, and good luck for the Challenge Championship as well. And it's been great having you on.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you, and thanks for having me on.
So another one, Rob, to add to the list for the championship in the Challenge Championship race. That's going to be her next big target. It's going to be a great race again, isn't it?
It sure is. Absolutely. It's great to see someone who's like trained and then the results improve and improve. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how she goes this year. Good stuff, Hells.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Right, we're going to give a shout out to a couple of sponsors. First up, a shout out to Food Cell. If you're looking for a top tube nutritional carrier, these things are awesome. They bolt onto the bolts on your top tube, or they attach with Velcro straps. They'll fit any bike, and they fit in loads more gels and food than any other top tube carrier on the market, despite not being physically very much bigger. And do you know, Hells, I was down getting a bike fit this weekend with Matt Botterill. We're going to have a bike fit special in a couple of weeks to talk about what we learned during the bike fit process. My mate Andy came with me, and he had his Food Cell on his race bike, and Matt's eyes lit up when he saw this. He's like, "Oh wow, I've heard you talk about these on the show. Look at that, this is awesome!" And he's kind of holding it up, looking at it with his aerodynamic eye, and going, "Oh yeah, these things are really good. I can see how that's going to work behind there." And I was thinking, okay, it's not scientific, but I know Matt well enough to know that if he thinks something looks like a good bit of kit, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
The key thing with it is you can open and close it with one finger as you're riding to get your stuff in and out of it. So I've always struggled in the past getting things in and out. So if you want to get over to foodcell.co.uk, you can pick yourself up one of those, and the code FREEPOST will give you free worldwide delivery for anyone who's outside of the UK as well as inside the UK, which is pretty darn cool. So
pretty.
I tell you what, Hells, it was great fun having that bike fit with Botty. I went in there.
It must have been ace.
My first photograph he took of me, in your head you think, I've got a pretty good bike position.
Yeah.
I looked like I was riding a 5-bar gate. In fact, I looked like I was sitting uncomfortably on top of a 5-bar gate at the start of it. And at the end of it, he made me look like a picture of him in the National 10-mile time trial championships.
Yes. So was it, I know we'll hear more about it over the next few weeks, but like, was it comfortable?
Yeah. The guy is like a bike fit ninja. And I don't know if you've read the book, The Alchemist. I was talking about this on the way home. The Alchemist talks about like when people find a true calling, the universe speaks to them in the language of whatever they're doing. And the universe speaks to Matt in the language of bike fit. He stands there like the guy from the Karate Kid and just goes, yeah, I see what we need to do with you. And he like shifted some bits around. And like objectively, there was nothing like complicated that he did, I don't think. But all of a sudden, I just went back on after he made these adjustments and was like, oh, this is what a bike's going to feel like. And my mate Andy as well, he was like, he struggles really badly with back and neck pain. And he was just, I can't believe how comfortable I feel. So as well as looking ridiculously aerodynamic, it felt super comfy as well. So yeah, really super impressed with it. And more than anything, I've left there so inspired to get back out there.
Is that why you were out training last night?
Yeah, I'm going to get in and do some 10-mile time trials. I'm going to get out and go out and blast up and down and have a zoom around. Yeah, I'm really inspired to get out and do a bit. So yeah, it's going to be good fun to.
Oh, that's sometimes you just need you just need that almost friendly helping hand, just to give you a little push or a little bit of inspiration, and then you're like, right, great.
And he's such an inspirational guy to talk to. He works with so many pros, and it's like he was texting Foggy as we were doing it, going, Rob Wilbur's going to come and take you down at the Outlaw. Foggy's like, yeah, I'm not that concerned. Bless him. But I am coming for you, Foggy. So, yeah, he's one of those guys. And afterwards, he like put it up on Instagram, and that's how we ended up with an interview with Susie Cheetham. Susie was like, oh, I forgot to reply to your email. I'm so sorry. Let's do the interview now. So, yeah, it was super cool. Loved it. Right, so talking about racing that's coming up, we've got the Outlaw Half coming up this weekend down in Nottingham, which looks like the weather's going to be nice for. So anyone who's racing the Outlaw Half, come over and say hi. I'm going to be helping out doing the race briefings at the start. So if you listen to the show, come and say hello and introduce yourselves. Hope the weather holds for you all. So I haven't got the start list here, but I know there's always tons of great British age groupers get down to that event to sharpen themselves up at the start of the season. And we've also got Ironman Lanzarote kicking off at the same time this weekend, haven't we?
Yeah. So that's always a great race, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is going to be this May. Actually, Rob, that's my bad. It's the following week. It's May the 25th.
Oh, it's the 25th, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. My bad. Don't you worry.
No
worries.
Is,
but it's got who's down to race? Sort of Nikki Bartlett and Emma Pallant again are both down to race. And then stacks a bit like
Graves is down on the start line as well, isn't it? Phil Graves is down on the men's race.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we can blether on about that a bit more next week, can't we?
Exactly.
We can jump into that there. So one thing we want to give another shout out before we finish is our sponsors, Tribe. You can go to wearetribe.co, and if you haven't tried their stuff yet, super yummy energy bars, protein shakes. You can try a 6-pack for just £1 using the code TRIBEOxygenAddict. Go to wearetribe.co/oxygenaddict. You can set up your own little pack. It'll get posted through the door. I actually had an extra recovery shake last night, Hells, when I got back from my ride. How funny is that? That's how seriously I'm taking it. I logged it on Strava, had the recovery shake afterwards, and I feel up and bouncing after their sea salt and I think a sea salt and cocoa I had last night.
Yes, yeah. Really
yummy, not super sweet like I was expecting at all. It tasted like one of those posh milkshakes in a posh milkshake bar down in London town. So yeah, I was thinking, bit of vegan goodness for me. So felt great and ready to go again this morning. So I'm going to get out in the sunshine again on the bike after we've done this.
I love this. So what are you training for a race, Rob, then at the moment?
I'm going to do some 10s. I'm just going to jump in.
So you're going to do it right. So you're going to do TTs.
I'm not going to do my traditional. I've done 3 days of good training, so I'll enter an Ironman and overface myself. I'm just going to go and do some local 10s and get back into it and just go out and have some fun and ride you around.
That's good. I'm doing, what am I doing? I'm doing a couple of more runs over the next few weeks.
What are you doing race-wise?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a women's only marathon, like in 2 weeks, as you do.
Really? Another one?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So
Anyway,
talk us through this then. Is this like are you going to go and race it? Are you going to do it just because you can, or what's the thinking?
I can.
Good for you, mate.
Yeah, just because I can, and I love Devon, and it's going to be like a day running around Devon. So
Nice.
why wouldn't you want to?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. Then the Winkle Trout Run, my favourite run.
When's that? What day is it on?
It's the 2nd of June, I think. 1st or the 2nd.
Is that a Tuesday night?
No, it's a weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, going cycling in Sardinia for like a week.
Lovely.
Yeah. And then panic training button has been hit because
Go on.
I'm doing the Chumley, the Castle Triathlon series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do the relay on the Saturday with Rich and friends. And then I'm going to do the middle distance on the Sunday as things stand. This is major
Awesome.
panic training.
So what date's that on?
I don't know, like the 25th of June or something?
Brilliant.
Yes.
So you're back on it. It's a mix of, I'm not taking it too seriously. Panic!
Correct. I still haven't swum for longer than 35 minutes yet at all.
You won't
Probably
need
since
to.
September.
You'll be out of the water faster than that come race day.
It'll be fine.
It'll be
So yeah, panic training is great.
Yeah, great stuff. So that gives you, about 6 weeks from now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I've never been to Chumley Castle. I might come down and cheer you on. That sounds like great fun.
Should.
Yeah.
Should do. The relay. I'm really looking forward to the relays.
So it's relays on the Saturday and then a middle distance on the Sunday.
So they've got relays, they've got Olympic, they've got loads of different stuff.
Cool.
Swims, just runs, you can do it all.
I love it. Sounds good, man.
There you go.
All right, cool. Well, that's our time. Let's wrap it up then. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening. Again, thanks to our sponsors, ph.com. You can get $9.99's worth of free product using the code OxygenAddict. Foodcell.co.uk. Get free postage worldwide with the code FREEPOST. Foodcell.co.uk. And Tribe, get a trial pack of 6 Yum Yums for just £1, including P&P, using the code Tribe Oxygen Addict, and go to wearetribe.co/Oxygen Addict if you use that. Both Hells and I are out to do some, we'll not call it panic training, Hells, we'll call it loving being out in the sunshine training. And we will be back next week with an update on our training and everyone else's training and racing around the world. So get out and enjoy the sun this week, everybody. All right, I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray. And
you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. Have a great, safe training and racing week, everybody, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Cheers now. See ya.